Hello guys, welcome back to Anime Moments. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Against the Gods based on novel. So let's start explanation. The Sovereign Profound Realm was the highest realm that could be reached in the Profound Sky Continent, and it was the same in the Illusory Demon Realm. In the Illusory Demon Realm, the strong who had reached Sovereign Profound Realm were mostly from Demon Imperial City. Outside of Demon Imperial City, it was hard to even have one in a few thousand years. And even in Demon Imperial City, very few reached Sovereign Profound Realm. The number of monarchs was the most important factor in determining how strong a family was. And, being at the top of the profound cultivating world, monarchs were also divided into different levels. Even though early stage and mid-stage monarchs were both in the Sovereign Profound Realm, their power levels were worlds apart. In the reputed Demon Imperial City, the famous Venerable Stone Dragon was a level 2 monarch, but 25 years ago, Yun Qinghong was already a level 5 monarch, a real mid-stage monarch. How could the Venerable Stone Dragon compete with him? Watching the strong Venerable Stone Dragon being defeated so easily by Yun Qinghong until he couldn't even stand up like he was a dead dog, the Yun family's disciples were all shocked, as if they were in a dream, and the Yun Qinghong who was floating in the air right now, in their eyes, was just like a god coming down to the mortal world. The elders were all stunned. Those younger generations who called Yun Qinghong the useless patriarch to his back never had respect, never even bowed when they saw him, who even treated him as a joke and the family's shame, lost their voices, as if something choked their throats, as they couldn't make a single sound. Compared to the power Yun Qinghong had released, they felt like they were minuscule, like dust in the ocean. Number 1 under heaven and unparalleled under heaven were both stunned as well. Looking at the divinely shining Yun Qinghong, they were so shocked that they forgot about all the fury and outrage they had earlier. Mu Yuro didn't have to hide anymore either. She removed the profound sealing buckle that was used to hide her profound energy aura, and a wave of invisible sovereign profound realm profound energy was released. This made a few of the elders' mouths widen even more. Mu Yuro flew into the air, and landed next to Yun Che, and asked, "Cheya, you alright?" "I'm fine," Yun Che smiled and shook his head, while focusing on Duke Huiyi the whole time. Duke Huiyi's face darkened so much that it looked as though he had just crawled out from under a pot. He looked extremely horrible. At the same time, he was just as shocked as everyone because of Yun Qinghong's sudden burst of mighty prowess. He kept thinking that everything that happened today was a complete nightmare. Even though a Yun family disciple has made a huge mistake, how they will be punished will be decided by us, the Yun family. Others do not get a say in this. Yun Qinghong lowered his eyebrows, looked down at the Venerable Stone Dragon from above, and said in a deep voice, "On behalf of you guarding the little demon emperor for 10 years, I will not kill you today. Take the master you serve now and get out of here before I change my mind." Duke Huiyi had a noble position, and his background was extraordinary. But now knowing his plot and his conspiring against the Yun family, he didn't have to save any face for Duke Huiyi. After all, these two facts were more than enough to become a nemesis against the Yun family, so there was no point for Yun Qinghong to worry about it any longer. The might and pressure coming from Yun Qinghong made the Venerable Stone Dragon's heart have trouble even moving. He had no doubt that if he kept being presumptuous, even if he merely talked tough to keep up appearances, Yun Qinghong would actually kill him, as well as Duke Huiyi. Duke Huiyi didn't know what Yun Qinghong was like before he became crippled, but he knew very clearly. 100 years ago, he was enraged by a duke who was committing serious crimes, and he killed him right on the street, and it was while he knew exactly who that duke was. "Your Highness, let's go?" The Venerable Stone Dragon almost crawled under Duke Huiyi's feet, used his eyes to warn him to leave immediately, and to not attempt to try to use his position as a duke to try to fight Yun Qinghong here. Duke Huiyi gnashed his teeth, and roared deeply, "Yun Qinghong, wait until you regret this, let's go. When you return, remember to tell your father." Yun Qinghong faced Duke Huiyi's back, and said softly, "For the sake of old times, I, Yun Qinghong, advise him to not throw away what he has today because of his greed and prejudice against women, and destroy himself. It's not too late to stop now. The little demon empress is much more powerful than what you imagined. As long as the Yun family is alive, we will forever be loyal to the demon emperor's bloodline." Duke Huiyi stopped his steps. His shoulders shook violently, As he turned around and said with a ferocious expression, Yun Qinghong, this duke also has a word from my father. It's not too late for the Yun family to surrender. Don't wait until the family with 10,000 years of history is reduced to dust. Yun Qinghong crossed his arms in front of his chest, not mad at all, and instead smiled in contempt. Are you done? Then get out of my sight. A mouthful of blood surged up from Duke Huiyi's chest, as he gnashed his teeth. His body trembled, and he flew away with haste. At this moment, an angry voice yelled, Helian Peng, where are you going? We haven't set our debts straight yet. Helian Peng's body stopped, turned around, and saw Unparalleled Under Heaven's darkened face. He laughed coldly and said, Unparalleled Under Heaven, since you already know, then I might as well be straight with you. The one our 12 guardian families have been loyal for generations to, is Lord Demon Emperor. The little Demon Empress is merely a woman, what gives her the right to make us obey her? But now, the little Demon Empress rule is almost at its end, and I will tell you honestly. Within the 12 guardian families, half of them are already leaning towards Duke Huai. I will give you a friendly word of advice. Shut up. Unparalleled Under Heaven said angrily, you are hypocritical, deceitful, and two-faced, yet you still have the face to make such dignified remarks. Putting your disloyalty aside, your Hellion clan even tried to stab the daughter of our patriarch in the back. You owe us an explanation for this. Want an explanation? Helian Peng laughed coldly. At Demon Empress Grand Ceremony a month later, I will take you on any time. Want to run? If I don't break your arm today, then I am not called Unparalleled Under Heaven. Watching Helian Peng leave, Unparalleled Under Heaven roared angrily, and chased him like the wind. Number 1 Under Heaven looked toward Yun Che's direction, hesitated, then quickly followed. Once outside of Yun family's territory, Duke Huiyi wasn't able to walk far before his body swayed, and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. Your Highness, are you all right? The venerable stone dragon asked hurriedly. Yun Qinghong. Duke Huiyi slowly wiped the corner of his mouth, his eyes filled with the expression of hatred. Even though Yun Qinghong didn't aim to hurt him, being pushed down by a mid-stage monarch, how could he endure that? Under Yun Qinghong's gaze and aura, his intestines were almost ripped to shreds. Originally, today was the day we elect Xinyu as the patriarch of the Yun family, so we could control the Yun family, and then use the Yun family to control the Mu family. This would clear 2 obstacles for father, but we didn't expect. Duke Huiyi held his hands in fists and suddenly widened his eyes. It's all that Yun Che's fault. 2 months ago, he disturbed my affairs, and today, it was because of him again. All because of him, we not only did not contain the Yun family and the Under Heaven family. Instead, we raised their alertness and hatred against us. If they tell everything to the little Demon Empress, the little Demon Empress might have even more defense and action. Everything is screwed. If father knew, all fault would definitely fall on this duke. Bastard, everything about this is all that Yun Che's fault. When we return, investigate everything about that Yun Che. This duke wants his entire clan destroyed. Xinyu. Why? Yun Weitian held Yun Xinyue's body in his arms and cried loudly. Under the venerable stone dragon's attack, Yun Xinyue's body was pierced through directly, and on top of not having the protection of profound energy, he was as dead as he could be. Yun Weitian went through jubilation and sorrow in a single day. Originally, he was full of joy, preparing to see the son he was so proud get pushed for election by Duke Huiyi, be approved by the Grand Elders with the whole clan's support to become patriarch, but he never thought that, not even an hour had passed, and they were separated by life and death. Even if he made a horrible mistake, he was still his biological son. Yun Qinghong floated down and stood beside Yun Weitian. Watching the family's great elder cry like a child, his mind flashed at the pain of losing a child for all these years. He made a long sigh, and said, Great elder, grieve. Even though Yun Xinyu was at fault, he was being forced by others, so it's forgivable. I believe that the people of our clan would also forgive him. 3 days later, we will bury him in Ancestors' Ridge. I will give an order, and not let anyone speak a word of the fault he had in his life. Yun Weishan's body shook slightly. A person who had committed a huge mistake had no right to enter Ancestors' Ridge after death. Yun Xinyu conspired with others to betray his own clan, and almost put the whole Yun family into a crisis that could not be averted. What he committed was a fault that could be cursed and chastised for hundreds of generations. And Yun Qinghong gave him permission to enter Ancestors' Ridge, and would conceal his guilt to the outsiders to protect his reputation. This could be seen as a merciful and magnanimous act. Thank you. Patriarch Yun Weitian lowered his head, and said with a choked throat. He thought about his ignorance and discourtesy against Yun Qinghong after his crippling, and felt ashamed. Even though Xin Yu is gone, you still have your two sons, Xin Wen and Xin Yi, and they need your support. Even though Xin Yu was at fault, it had nothing to do with you. After today, you are still the Yun family's great elder. If the Yun family wants to rise, it must depend on you. So, for your family and for the entire Yun family, you must not fall. Yun Weitian lifted his head, looked at Yun Qinghong with tears in his eyes, and couldn't speak a word. Xiao, Chea, let's go. Yun Qinghong turned around. Patriarch. Patriarch. A lot of voices addressing him came from his back. Yun Qinghong paused his steps, lifted his hands and said, today's family competition is cancelled, tidy this place up first. I know you all have a lot of questions, but right now, there's about to be a crisis in Demon Imperial City, and the Yun family must be well prepared. Tomorrow at 10 in the morning, we will have the clan's general assembly as usual. I will explain everything, and then discuss the family's affairs. Anyone above middle management cannot be absent. Yes, Patriarch. The sound of their response was loud and clear, especially the word, Patriarch. It made many of the elders' eyes glisten with tears. Yun Qinghong and his wife left. The whole Yun family plaza completely lost control, and couldn't calm down for a long time. Patriarch has returned. Our Patriarch has really returned. The rise of the Yun family, there's hope. I can't believe we were all rooting for Yun Xinyu to be the next Patriarch. Our eyes really were blind. If it wasn't for Patriarch's wisdom, the consequences would be unimaginable. Besides Patriarch, we need to thank the godson the Patriarch has taken in, Yun Che. What's ironic is that we were even mocking him before. The Yun family elders gathered in a circle, all talking at once without considering their image. Their faces were all red from being so rowdy. At this moment, Yun Weitian had already stopped crying. He held onto Yun Xinyue's body, and knelt there, staring blankly ahead. Second elder Yun Duanshui walked over. After a moment of hesitation, he sighed and said, Great elder, did you think it was strange that when the Patriarch returned, there were so many people among us that were riled up like this? Yun Weishan's eyes moved a little. Yun Duanshui said slowly, after Yun Sanghai, Yun Qinghong became the Patriarch of our Yun family. Even though he was crippled, he is still the Patriarch. We would never let anyone question his position and his power as the Patriarch because of his crippled state. But because of the Patriarch being crippled, and him knowing Yun Xiao wasn't his biological son, he believed that he couldn't take on the responsibilities of being Patriarch. He wanted us to give him up and make you the center, and in the future, make you our Yun family Patriarch. Yun Weitian? Patriarch said, even though you have ambitions, you also have absolute loyalty to the Yun family, and want the clan to rise more than anyone else. His bloodline has ended, but handing the responsibility to the great elder's bloodline is what sets his mind at ease the most. He told us to coordinate and listen to your orders, and help you bring up your prestige in the Yun family. As for the Patriarch himself, he strictly commanded us that we cannot even visit him. When the time is right, we would make you the Patriarch. Yun Weitian opened his mouth, his whole body was trembling. To be honest, even after more than 20 years, as soon as the Patriarch gives his command, of us 36 main elders of the family, at least 20 people would stand by the Patriarch without any hesitation. Regarding the purpose of today's General Assembly, the Patriarch already knew. Fourth elder and I told the Patriarch together. The Patriarch's response was to let us elect you as the new Patriarch, and us agreeing later on for Yun Xinyu to be the new Patriarch was unexpected. The isolation that Patriarch received after he was crippled was not because we wanted to isolate him, it was him who wanted us to do so. His silence was not because he was giving up on himself, but was to wear down his reputation to raise up yours. Because to Patriarch, the clan's future is far more important than his reputation and honor. He was a great, wise patriarch. Though he was crippled, we cannot help but still respect him. But the heavens finally favored us, the Yun family. Our patriarch has returned, and we resolved a family disaster. Yun Duanshui looked at the stunned Yun Weitian, and said, "You knew exactly how you treated Patriarch all these years, how serious your son Yun Xinu's mistake was, but you saw how Patriarch treated you just now. What I'm saying is, I hope that in the future, Great Elder would not disappoint Patriarch and the Yun family." After Yun Duanshui left, Yun Weitian stood there blankly for a long time, as though he was petrified. After an eighth of an hour, his body trembled, and he dropped on the ground, crying loudly. "Yuro, brother-in-law, you've both recovered, truly, fully recovered." He was the stately Mu family's future patriarch, yet currently, he was excitedly dancing in joy like a child. In regards to Mu Yubai's temperament, Yun Che had roughly understood it today. He was someone who wore his emotions on his face, upright and outspoken, and was not one to suppress his feelings. At this moment, he was excited and pleasantly surprised, and this completely showed on his face. "We've already fully recovered 10 days ago. During those days, we've always worn the profound sealing buckle to conceal our profound aura," Mu Yuro said with a light laugh. Seeing the man who she had accompanied throughout her entire life stand up from the wheelchair to once more display the great might he possessed back then, after more than 20 years, she couldn't help but want to cry tears of joy. No one else was more clear about these 22 years this prideful man spent whilst handicapped, and how much he suffered every day. Whether it is our body or profound strength, they have all fully recovered, and this is not something short-lived. Yun Qinghong lifted his hand and said with a smile, "All this is because of Chea. He merely used not even 2 months of time. I, Yun Qinghong, have seen and experienced quite a lot of things, but if this did not happen on my person, I still would never dare believe it." All of the genius doctors in the illusory demon realm added up together could barely rival one finger on Chea's hand. "I'm afraid that not even the great shifting golden deity of legends could even compare, ho-ho." This evaluation was no doubt the highest praise beyond limits, and this praise had even come from Yun Qinghong himself. However, Mu Yubai did not feel that it was exaggerated in the least. He was more clear than anyone else about how crippled Yun Qinghong and Mu Yuro were originally. Since 20 years ago, in the entire illusory demon realm, not one person believed that they were able to recover. They weren't even able to recover to an ordinary person's state of health. Now that this appeared before his eyes, it was no less than a miracle. And this merely took a short time of not even 2 months. Mu Yubai grabbed Yun Che's shoulders, widened his eyes, and said with great emotion, "Good kid. Mu Yubai has lived for more than 180 years, and the only person I have ever truly admired is my brother-in-law, Yun Qinghong. But now, I admire you 10 times more than that. So much that I prostrate myself in admiration. You saving my brother-in-law means that you have saved the entire Yun family. You saving my little sister Yuro also means that you are our Mu family's benefactor. Amen." Mu Yubai's eyes suddenly lit up as the hands he used to grab at Yun Che tightened a bit more. This was a monarch's strength, and it immediately made Yun Che ache so hard that he gritted his teeth. "Boy. Oh, no, little brother Yun. How about we become sworn brothers? I'll be your big brother in the future, and you'll be my little brother. Your affairs would also become my affairs. If anyone dares to bully you, I'll smash their brains apart." If this situation of the Mu family's young patriarch requesting to become sworn brothers were to spread out, the entire city would perhaps drop their jaws in shock. If this was in normal circumstances, Yun Che would definitely gladly agree. With such a great supporter, Yun Che could most probably walk sideways against the law if he wanted. But once Mu Yubai's words came out, it actually scared Yun Che to the point where his entire body broke out in cold sweat. He incessantly waved panically, "SSS Senior Mu, this cannot be done. My humble self is merely a junior, how could I dare become sworn brothers with Senior Mu?" The difference in seniority wasn't really much of a huge issue. The main point was that this Mu Yubai was his biological uncle. If he became sworn brothers just like that, once he revealed himself, Mu Yubai might even go look for a block of tofu to suicide himself into. TCH. Mu Yubai swung an arm. What junior, senior, that's all rubbish. Even though you are a bit young and your profound strength is a bit low, just with your medical skills and the courage you displayed today would even make me willingly call you big brother. Amen. If you don't want to be my little brother, then me calling you big brother in the future is fine too. That's no problem at all. These few words that Mu Yubai had said truly were not forced out at all. Yun Qinghong and Mu Yuro were crippled to such a state, yet they were able to fully recover in 2 months. In Mu Yubai's eyes, Yun Che could even be called God. If he could make this person into one of his own, no matter how great of a price he had to pay, it would still not be a loss. As a profound practitioner, there was no one who did not fall ill, encounter calamity, never get injured, and never be in danger. With Yun Che by his side, that would simply be countless numbers of lives under his belt. Even if one were to want to die, it would be hard. Even if one were to be crippled into a dog, they would still fully recover. If Mu Yubai had to pick between 10 monarchs and 1 Yun Che, Mu Yubai would definitely pick Yun Che without the slightest hesitation. Yun Che grimaced. Senior Mu, this junior is just. Mu Yubai's face immediately fell, as he said unhappily, what? Am I, Mu Yubai, beneath your notice? Do you think that I am not worthy enough to become your sworn brother? Of course not. Yun Che waved. This junior is naturally beside himself in delight knowing that Mu Yubai wants to become sworn brothers with this junior. But the problem is that this junior has already become sworn brothers with Yun Xiao. Your sister and brother-in-law are also junior's godfather and godmother. If this junior becomes sworn brothers with you, then the seniority here would be completely messed up. This is not fair to junior, nor is it fair to my godparents. So what? This and that are all not important. It's not as though I don't know you have become sworn brothers with that kiddo Yun Xiao. Mu Yubai blurted without care as he waved his hand. His heart was just this wide. All right, big brother, don't make things difficult for Cheya anymore. Mu Yuro said in amusement, even if you don't care about seniority matters and want to become sworn brothers with Cheya no matter what, you'll have to at least show your sincerity. Who would be as aggressive as you? It'll be a wonder if you didn't scare Cheya. Mu Yubai widened his eyes, then slapped his head, and said in annoyance, you're right. Look at this brain of mine, randomly telling someone to become my sworn brother. I didn't mean for it to come out that way either, hey. Yun Che boyo, oh, no, little brother Yun, I was rude earlier. Come to my Mu family for a visit someday. I'll definitely let you see my sincerity. I, Mu Yubai, promise you that I am absolutely worthy of becoming your sworn brother. All right, let's talk about this when that time comes. Big brother, go back home and tell father about what happened today, let him prepare for it as well. Something huge is bound to happen during the Demon Empress Grand Ceremony. After 2 days, I'll go back with Qinghong for a visit too. Mu Yuro stated. Amen, if the old man knew that you and brother-in-law have recovered completely, I'd reckon he'll be so happy that he wouldn't be able to sleep for 3 days. Oh. When you come back with brother-in-law, make sure to bring this kid. Mu Yubai said with great emphasis. Xiao, go send your uncle off with your mother, said Yun Qinghong. Oh? Yes, father. Yun Xiao was still a bit stunned. It was evident that he had not completely taken in and digested everything that had happened today. Mu Yubai glanced at Yun Qinghong. He knew why Yun Qinghong was letting Mu Yuro and Yun Xiao send him off. He probably had things he wanted to say to Yun Che alone, so he didn't decline. With a wave of his hand, he left taking large strides. Father, do you have something you want to tell me? Once they left, only Yun Qinghong and Yun Che remained within the courtyard. Yun Qinghong nodded, then smiled and said, Cheya, this is all thanks to you. If not for you, Yun family's 10,000 years of loyalty would be destroyed in 1 day. Even so much that we would be beyond redemption. Yun Che grinned, father's too polite. I'm still considered to be half a member of the Yun family. Besides, the one who suppressed everyone is you, father. And with father's wisdom and foresight, even if I wasn't here, you should have seen through everything a long time ago, right? Yun Qinghong shook his head, and said, in these past years, due to my crippling, I knew that I did not have the power to support the Yun family, so I had always closed my eyes and ears. Even though I was aware of Duke Huai's disloyalty a long time ago and guessed that he might perhaps already be stretching out his hands into the Yun family, I didn't know where he had stretched in from. Furthermore, if not for the fact that you helped recover our health and profound strength for us, even if I knew everything, I wouldn't have the power to turn it around. Yun Che thought for a while, then said, Father, I have a speculation. I believe that among the elders of your generation, some have not left because of your crippling. All these years that you have been alone, that was something you did deliberately, right? Yun Qinghong laughed, and looked at him with praising eyes. Yes, you're right. Even though I really don't want the patriarch position of our patriarchal line given to others, at that time, I was completely crippled, and Xiao was not my biological child. I'd rather given the head position to Yun Weitian than be a burden on the Yun family. After all, even though the honor of our patriarch bloodline is important, how could it possibly compare with our Yun clan's future? Chea, if not for you helping me recover, I originally would have already prepared myself to watch Yun Weitian succeed my position as patriarch. But now that I have recovered, and have enough strength to bear the heavy responsibility of the clan, this position of patriarch absolutely cannot be given to others. Chea, you have truly altered the fate of our entire Yun family. This kind of great favor is enough to let our Yun family remember it for over thousands of generations. The reason why I wanted to be alone with you is to confess something to you. Yun Qinghong sucked in a slight breath of air, and said somewhat sadly, I deliberately allowed the venerable stone dragon to kill Yun Qingyue. I know. Against Yun Qinghong's expectations, Yun Che actually gave a direct reply which held no hesitation. He continued, with father's strength as well as the close distance back then, protecting Yun Xingyue against the venerable stone dragon's attack could be said to be as easy as turning one's hand over. Then, do you think that I am too ruthless? No. Yun Che shook his head, the complete opposite. I fully approve of father's decision. Since Yun Xinyu has already said Helian and Duke Huai, there is no need to continue asking any further. Even though he had been poisoned and was forced, he still went as far as secretly backstabbing a fellow clansman for the promise of the patriarch position and the title of a king. What's even more despicable is the fact that he didn't hesitate to harm the entire clan. Dying 10,000 times for such a serious crime would not be excessive at all. And if he were to be executed by the clan, even though Yun Weitian won't say anything, he would still bear resentment over this. Him being timely silenced by Duke Huiyi actually couldn't be even better. On one hand, he would feel hatred toward Duke Huai's clan for killing his son, on the other, he would be moved to tears by father's comfort and forgiveness. Furthermore, the guilt he'll feel then would thereby make him unwaveringly loyal to father and the Yun family. After all, Yun Weitian is Yun family's great elder, excluding father, he is one of the major pillars of Yun family that must not be lost. This outcome is the most perfect one. Yun Qinghong looked deeply at Yun Che, then laughed heartily, ha 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 ha. Chea, I am still underestimating you. It is hard for me to believe that you are only 22 this year. With your talent and temperament, I would not doubt it even if you say that you have 1,000 years of experience. Yun Che also laughed along, and lightly sighed in his heart. What I have encountered, the life and death situations, as well as the dangers I've experienced, even if someone else were to pile up their 1,000 years of life experiences, they probably still can't match mine. During the conversation between Yun Che and Yun Qinghong, two silhouettes flashed past before descending. It was then followed by mild laughter. Ho ho, Yun Qinghong, it's been a long time. That person was unparalleled under heaven, and soon, number one under heaven descended as well. The phrase, it's been a long time, by unparalleled under heaven contained various meanings, being in the same city, yet it had been a long time since they last met. Brother under heaven, it has indeed been a long time. Yun Qinghong nodded, his expression revealed deep lament. Where's Helian Peng? Did you manage to catch up to him? That bastard fled really quickly, but I still managed to give him a good kick on his ass, enough for him to feel pain from some days. That has at least quelled some of my anger. Ha 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 ha. Unparalleled under heaven laughed. Number 1 under heaven stepped forward and paid respects as a junior. Patriarch Yun returning to his former glory is a joyous event. With Patriarch Yun, Yun family's return to prominence is just around the corner. I hope it is like what you have just said. Yun Qinghong nodded with a smile. Then, he became serious again, and said, Duke Huai's ambition has already been exposed. The little demon empress grand ceremony would definitely not be peaceful. Please pass a message to elder brother under heaven, that within 5 days, I will personally be going over to visit and discuss some important matters. Patriarch Yun is definitely most welcome to visit. However, I'm afraid that our patriarch will not be able to wait 5 days, and come visit you instead after hearing that you have recovered. Unparalleled under heaven laughed. His words were not lies, since all those years back, the person great ambition under heaven would submit to the most was Yun Qinghong. After Yun Qinghong became crippled, even if he did not sigh 1,000 times, there must have at least been 800 times. Patriarch Yun, since a major event just happened within your family, you must be busy. We only returned to bid our farewell, so we shall not stay any longer. I will deliver Patriarch Yun's words in full. When you are free, do come to our Under Heaven clan to visit. Unparalleled Under Heaven clasped his hands together. Although he was very curious, he did not presumptuously ask Yun Qinghong and his wife just how and when they recovered. Definitely. Yun Qinghong similarly returned his gesture. Brother Yun, there are no words to thank you for your kindness. Number 1 Under Heaven nodded strongly towards Yun Che. Brother Under Heaven is too kind. We'll meet again in 1 month. Yun Che said with a smile, also, pardon me for saying this, but the little demon empress grand ceremony is near at hand. At that time, another storm would likely be swept up, therefore, I think that now is not the time to be distracted by the grudge with the Hellion family. Priorities must be placed correctly and personal grudges should be put aside for now, as revenge is best served cold. Yun Che's words did not make them unhappy. Number 1 Under Heaven nodded slightly, and Unparalleled Under Heaven even revealed signs of admiration, uttering, Patriarch Yun, your godson is really extraordinary. Farewell. Unparalleled Under Heaven and Number 1 Heaven left. It would not be possible to keep whatever happened in the Yun family today a secret, and perhaps by evening, it would have already spread throughout the city like wildfire. The ambition that Duke Huai had all this time would be largely made public. During this period, Demon Imperial City would certainly be tense, and the 12 Guardian families would enter a very nervous state. The Little Demon Empress Grand Ceremony in 1 month's time definitely would not be as simple as a celebration of the Demon Empress having reigned for a century, and would likely become a turning point for the future of the illusory demon realm. After the two left, Mu Yuro and Yun Xiao, who went to send Mu Yubai off, returned. Once Mu Yuro returned, she immediately sprinted beside Yun Qinghong, and asked nervously, what happened with the Patriarch's crest? Where did you get it from? Yun Qinghong also would like to know where the Patriarch's crest came from. He looked towards Yun Che, and replied, Chea passed it to me. Chea? Mu Yuro turned back in shock, revealing a face of disbelief. Chea, isn't it about time for you to tell us about this Patriarch's crest? This is your promise from earlier. Yun Qinghong calmly spoke, but his gaze already revealed his anxiousness. Because when this Patriarch's crest was lost 100 years ago, it was on his father, Yun Sunghai. As Yun family's most important object, Yun Sunghai would have never left it alone. Yun Che's lips moved for a little, as he calmed himself, and said, let's go in. I will tell you everything you all want to know. Good. Yun Qinghong nodded. Looking at Yun Che's expression, he knew that whatever he was going to say would definitely be overwhelming. He held Mu Yuro's hand, and they walked towards their room. Yun Xiao quickly walked beside Yun Che, asking with a face of shock, Big brother, that Patriarch's crest, did you really give it to father? Yup, Yun Che nodded. I will say in full how I obtained it. It is after all, a Yun family object. As he finished, he looked at Yun Xiao, who looked a little out of sorts, and asked, Yun Xiao, are you still thinking about what happened just now? Yun Xiao lowered his head, speaking half in regret and half self-deprecatingly, until now, I still could not accept that the Yun Xinyu, whom I respect the most, is actually such a person. Just now, I still suspected Big Brother because of him. I'm really too foolish. All these years, I worked so hard in order to do something for father and mother. However, when the entire Yoon family was in a predicament, I was unable to do anything and foolishly supported a man who nearly caused the death of a fellow clansman. If it wasn't for Big Brother, who knows what would happen to the Yoon family from now onwards. Me and Big Brother are of a similar age, but I'm too far behind Big Brother. I'm totally useless. Who knows when I'll be able to be like Big Brother. Yoon Chae stopped walking, turned back, and patted Xiao Yun's shoulders as he said seriously, "Don't look down on yourself. You have worked hard in your cultivation for father and mother all these years, withstanding everything that came for them. Your filial piety is more important and precious than anything else. As for Yoon Shin-yu, weren't those elders who lived for hundreds of years, and some even close to 1,000 years, in the dark as well? There's really no need for you to diminish yourself. Oversensitive instincts, predictions, and insights are not something people your age will possess." But Big Brother, you're obviously the same age as me. I'm different." Yoon Chae shook his head. "Yoon Xiao, I would rather you keep your personality forever and be as useless as you said, than to experience what I have experienced." Yoon Xiao looked at him perplexedly, unable to comprehend what he just said. Although they talked softly, it was unable to escape Yoon Ching-hong's ears. Hearing what Yoon Chae had said, he stopped for a moment as a complex expression appeared on his face. That's right, being just 22 and already possessing a maturity and insight that was unlike anyone of the same age, he couldn't comprehend just what had he been through. "Yoon Xiao, if you really want to mature more quickly, today will be an opportunity," Yoon Chae suddenly said. Yoon Xiao was stunned. "Really? What opportunity? What opportunity? Fate often plays all sorts of pranks on us. Sometimes it is friendly, sometimes it is evil, and other times cruel, or even vicious. As a man, if you really want to be indomitable and independent, the first thing you must learn is to calmly face the changes that fate brings about. This requires one to be broad-minded and have enough courage. If you are able to do this, then your life will improve and you will possess more strength for father and mother to rely on, more strength for seventh sister to rely on." Calmly face, Yoon Xiao was still a little shocked, and although he did not really understand the things Yoon Chae had said, he felt that it was very powerful. "What's going to happen next will be a test of sorts for you," Yoon Chae said in a positive manner. "Let me see whether or not my good brother of a lifetime will be an indomitable man who is not easily defeated by the twist of fate." Even though he still did not completely know what Yoon Chae was saying, his words still raised Yoon Xiao's morale as he strongly said, Yoon Xiao, do not have such a weak mind. Even if I cannot compare with Big Brother, I will not let Big Brother look down on me." "All right, that's what you said, let's go in." After they entered the room, they closed the door. Yoon Ching-hong took out the patriarch's crest that was glowing purple and felt the unique aura on it. Suppressing his agitation, he anxiously asked, "Chae, tell me, where did you get this?" When the question was asked, Yoon Ching-hong, Mu Yuro, and Yoon Xiao all looked straight at him, anxiously and nervously awaiting his reply. Under their gaze, Yoon Chae did not reply, but looked towards Yoon Ching-hong and Mu Yuro and gradually knelt down. Furthermore, he had knelt down on both his knees. "Chae, what are you doing? Hurry and stand up." Mu Yuro panicked, and quickly went forward to try and help him up. Yoon Chae did not rise, but raised his head and looked at them, his own birth parents. Slowly, he opened his palm. "Father, mother. Do you all still remember this thing?" On Yoon Chae's palm was an old-looking copper-colored pendant. The second they saw the pendant, Yoon Ching-hong and Mu Yunru seemed as though they were struck by lightning as their entire bodies trembled violently. Mu Yuro suddenly rushed forward like a madman and snatched the pendant in Yoon Chae's palm, raising it up to her eyes to look at it. Her hands continued to tremble madly. "Mirror of Samsara, it's the mirror of Samsara. It really is the mirror of Samsara." Mu Yuro, who usually spoke gently, like water, was currently speaking in a frightening, trembling, hoarse voice. Yoon Xiao was shocked as he anxiously asked, "Mother, what's wrong?" He turned towards Yoon Ching-hong, only to realize that his entire face had already distorted. "This mirror of Samsara? Where did you get it from?" for the intelligent and proud Yun Qinghong, this short sentence was extremely hard to say. However, a sudden thought flashed past his mind, and his body trembled even more violently. Could it be you? Yunche did not answer. He only raised up his left arm, and on his arm, the mark of the profound handle shone vividly. A profound handle. Yun Xiao screamed in surprise. Even though he did not have the profound handle, being in the Yun family for 20-odd years, how could he not recognize it? Holding the mirror of samsara in her hand and looking at the glowing mark of the profound handle, Mu Yuro was stunned. Her hands trembled and even her lips trembled intensely, yet she could not utter a single sound. In an instant, her eyes were flooded with tears and her mind spun, before she directly fell backwards. Mother! Yun Xiao rushed forward to support her. Mother! What's wrong? Don't scare me. Yun Qinghong's eyes were unfocused. His breathing completely stopped and he could no longer feel the existence of his body, which was burning hot. The instant the profound handle shone, blood rushed into his head, causing him to hallucinate. He nearly vomited blood and fainted. Yun Che's eyes were misty as he softly said, "Before I was 16, my surname was not Yun but instead Xiao. At that time, I was called Xiao Che. I'm not from the illusory demon realm. The place I grew up in was one of the 7 nations of the profound sky continent, called Blue Wind Nation. The city I lived in was Floating Cloud City. My adoptive father was called Xiao Ying and my grandfather is Xiao Lai." Each and every one of Yun Che's soft words reverberated in Yun Qinghong's ears like a thunderclap. His upper body violently swayed and the scene before him became blurry. His brain felt like it was going to explode from the violent rushes of blood assaulting his head. "Child! You are my child! My child!" Mu Yuro let out a cry that betrayed her immense heartache as she shrugged off Yun Xiao's arm and threw herself violently onto Yun Che's body. She hugged him as if her life itself depended on it and started bawling like a child. The arms wrapped around him began to tighten, and if this embrace grew any tighter, it would be as though she wanted to draw him into herself. And the mournful and heartbroken sound of her wails seemed to cause the whole world to turn a darker shade of grey. Yun Qinghong stepped forward to extend his arm, but he stopped midway. And the words he wanted to say seemed to be lodged inside his throat, as though something was stuck there, and once he opened his mouth, the tears which he were trying so hard to restrain threatened to burst out. The mirror of samsara was what they had hung around their son's neck when they were fleeing all those years ago. Because they prayed that this sacred artifact, which they had protected for generations on behalf of the illusory demon royal family and was coveted by the profound sky continent, would show its divine might and protect their newborn son who had no choice but to become a fugitive because of them. And that profound imprint was even more ironclad proof, and the words that he said. Profound sky continent, Blue Wind Nation, Floating Cloud City, and Xiao Ying were all names that they had repeated to themselves countless of times. And while he had mentioned these words to Yun Che when he told him of the origins of Yun Xiao, he had definitely never mentioned the name Xiao Lai. Moreover, that appearance which closely matched his own when he was young, and that feeling of recognition despite having met for the first time. And that practically unreasonable and irresistible intimacy and trust that he felt towards him. So it was because of this. No wonder he wanted to come to the Yun family. No wonder he spared no effort, even to the point of fainting due to exhaustion, to ensure that he healed their crippled bodies. No wonder he had treated him and Yuro so well. No wonder he did not hesitate to cross swords with such a strong enemy, just so the calamity awaiting the Yun family could be averted. No wonder he wanted to become sworn brothers with Yun Xiao. And finally, now that things have come full circle, he understood why Yun Che did not want to call them godfather and godmother, but father and mother instead. Because it turned out that he was their son. Their very own flesh and blood. The son that they had lost over 20 years ago. The heavens had sent him back to their side. He should have realized this sooner. Because in this world, aside from one's own direct relatives, there was no reason to treat another with such care and concern, to the point where he would not spare anything to treat them well. But even though his heart held countless suspicions towards this situation, how could he have dared to dream of such an impossibly perfect conclusion? My child. My child, Muyuro's voice had become completely hoarse. She had wept to the point where her soul seemed to have left her body, and she was no simple woman, she was a strong monarch who was looked up to by all, she was the wife of Yun family patriarch. Her talent was extraordinary, she was nobility, and she was possessed an iron will. In those years, she had ventured forth together with her husband to the profound sky continent that caused everyone's expression to change when it was even mentioned. It was hard to find another person with this kind of courage and determination in the entire illusory demon realm. But today, her tears had formed an ocean. All these years, she was always being tortured by her own thoughts, to the point where she had wept an immeasurable amount of tears. And in this entire world, there was only person who could make this woman, who had dared to brave the profound sky continent without fear, so weak. There was only one person who could cause her to shed so many tears. It was her newborn son, whom she thought was lost to her forever. The front of Yunche's shirt had quickly become drenched in tears, but this wetness was filled with a warmth that pierced him to the heart. It caused his heart to steadily tremble, as he slowly raised his hands, supporting her spasming shoulders. He gently said, "Father, Mother, this child is unfilial. Because for more than 20 years, I was unable to be by your side. All is well now that you have returned. All is well." After just saying these few words, Yun Qinghong already had to choke back his emotions, and he did not speak any further. Yun Xiao just stood there in a daze and he was completely dumbstruck. In his mind, there was only one voice that kept circulating in his head. Big brother is father and mother's son, their real flesh and blood son. So, what about me? I guess I really wasn't father and mother's flesh and blood after all. He had already known about this fact long ago, and even the entire demon imperial city knew as well. Being unable to wield the power of a profound handle, that was an inescapable truth, but because Yun Qinghong and Mu Yuro had never admitted it before, this matter which everyone knew as fact, had, in his own heart, been covered with a hazy veil which he did not want to tear away. But today, this final layer had been completely and utterly ripped away. His emotions were in complete chaos, he was at a loss of what to do, and he did not even know if he should still continue to stand in this place. And at this time, his mind suddenly recalled what Yun Che had just said to him. "Ah, so this is the twist of fate that big brother said that I was about to face," he softly murmured. Yun Che's words had immediately provoked even louder weeping from Mu Yuro. All these years, what she endured was not only a sense of loss but also the torment of guilt. Because all those years ago, it was because of them that their son had to become a fugitive even though he was just born. Moreover, it was because she had been stricken by the cold poison when she was pregnant that they had to destroy his profound veins and make him a cripple for life to expel that poison from his body. At that time, she was already filled with so much grief that she wished she was dead as her guilt threatened to engulf her. And the only thing on her mind was that if she could escape from this situation, she would do all she could to make it up to him and protect him. But when they finally returned to the illusory demon realm, her son had been left in the profound sky continent, a place which they could not return to, and that denied her even of the opportunity to nurture and accompany her child. But now, a child had come back, and his return to her side seemed like a dazzling dream. He harbored no resentment towards them and did not even utter a single complaint. Instead he healed her body, gave her a rebirth of sorts, and even helped the Yun family avert a calamity. And in the end, he still knelt before them, saying that he was unfilial. Her own son had not only come back, but had become so excellent, and had also become so kind-hearted. In the past 22 years, she had lost count of how many times she had cursed the heavens, had lost count of all the times she had resented this cruel fate. But right now, she used all her heart and sincerity to piously thank the heavens. Yun Che had thought that after he had given himself a 2-month cushion, he would be able to maintain his cool in this situation. But after he had been buried in his mother's embrace, heard his mother's heartfelt cries, and felt her hot tears which flooded over him, his eyes had completely moistened. She had engulfed him in an extremely tight yet oh so warm embrace. And amidst this warmth, the tears which had been dammed up at the corners of his eyes finally burst free, they trickled down his face, tracing little pathways, as a feeling of weakness slowly rose in his heart. All these years, he had suffered too many hardships, had been through too many twists and turns, and even life and death situations. Thus, his will had long ago been hammered into something hard and unyielding. The amount of blood he had shed was 1,000,000 times more than the tears he cried. He had single-handedly gone up against a huge clan and also an entire nation by himself. He had also gone up against an entire continent before, to the point where he was forced to skirt the border between life and death constantly, but he still held his head high with unyielding tenacity back then, and had worn a cold, blood-stained smile that expressed his defiance till the very end. But at this moment, this feeling of weakness was so real and irresistible that it caused him to have the urge to just break down and cry. He knew that this was because he was in his mother's arms. It was only after 2 lives, till this very day, that he knew what a mother's embrace was like. He was finally not a parentless, rootless wanderer covered in sand and dried blood any longer. Time seemed to have slowed down. No one came to disturb their family reunion, and nothing else seemed to have taken place that day. But in the end, Yun Ching Hong was still Yun Ching Hong. After some time, he had finally been able to take hold of his emotions as he mutely stared at the mother and son who were still caught in their embrace. Sometimes he laughed, while at other times, he closed his eyes. Finally, Mu Yuro's completely hoarse crying had stilled. He gave a small sigh of relief and said in the most relaxed tone he could muster, "Yuro, the heavens have given our son back to us and it is cause for great joy. But you see, your crying has frightened Cheya and Xiao silly." Mu Yuro raised her head, her entire face was stained with tears. She lightly sobbed and held Yun Che's face in both her hands. Her motions were so gentle, it was thought she was holding a delicate treasure that would easily break. She peered at him through misty eyes and softly whispered, "Yes. This is my son. Cheya, my son." Her entire body gave a light quiver and she put her face on her son's face. And even though she tried her best to restrain her weeping, the tears in her eyes still rolled down her cheeks. She was unable to stop. The hands which held her son refused to let go, as if she was afraid that once she did let go, he would disappear from her world once more. Her current disheveled state did not even remotely resemble her usual noble and elegant comportment. Yun Ching Hong took a step forward and his hand pressed down on Yun Che's shoulder. His face bore a faint smile, but when he opened his mouth, he seemed to choke on his words. It was only after a good period of time, with a smile that faintly trembled, he softly said, "Cheya, welcome home. We have already waited for you for a very long time in our dreams." Yun Che quietly wiped the corners of his eyes and raised his head, softly replying, "Father, Mother, I am sorry. This child has only come back now. And because of this, I have caused both father and mother so many years of pain. You are not late at all." Yun Ching Hong laughed as he shook his head, "As long as you have come back to us, all is well." The person before him who was so excellent that it caused him to exclaim in admiration, who had caused Mu Yubai to disregard his status and seniority in order to become sworn brothers with, was actually his own flesh and blood. The kind of pride, joy and contentment he felt, was intense beyond description. He even felt that even if he had to use his own death to trade for this moment of truth, he would go with a smile on his face. "Yuro, our son has already come back and he is even this big. He won't run away again, so how long do you want to keep hugging him?" Yun Ching Hong lovingly patted his wife's back. "Can it be that you want our son, on the day of his return, to kneel there the entire afternoon?" Yun Ching Hong's last words had an immediate effect. After she saw that Yun Che had knelt there motionlessly for nearly half a day, Mu Yuro instantly felt such self-reproach and regret that she almost cried once more. She hurriedly wiped her tears and extended her hand to lift Yun Che up. "Cheya, quickly get up, the floor is cold." "Oh, this is all Mother's fault, I had even forgotten that you were kneeling on the ground." Yun Che stood up as Mu Yuro lightly supported him. He shook his head and said, "This is nothing, Mother. I was unable to be by your side all these years, so the amount of kneeling I owe the both of you, even kneeling for 3 days and 3 nights wouldn't make up for it. This kind of close intimacy was simply too precious and too warm." He was willing to present his best and most obedient side, in order to bring them comfort and joy. At their side, Yun Xiao hesitated for a good long while before coming forward in a rather timid manner, saying, "Father, Mother, Big Brother, Congra. Congratulations on finally being able to reunite as a family. It is not a family, it is our family reunion. Yunche pulled Yun Xiao close. The words you just said sounded like you weren't part of the family at all. But, Yun Xiao softly bit on his lips and looked at a complete loss. He faced Yun Qinghong and Mu Yuro, bowed his head, and said in a lifeless and dazed voice, In the future, can I still call the both of you father and mother? His words caused Yun Qinghong and his wife to be slightly startled, but after that, they laughed at the same time. Mu Yuro said in a gentle tone, You silly child, you have always been father and mother's Xiao. The son we watched grow up, whom we loved the most. So why would we not let you address us as father and mother? Hey, Yun Xiao. What are you saying? We are sworn brothers, you know. Yunche patted him on the head. When we said our vows to each other when we became sworn brother, we swore that we would be brothers for life, that your parents would be my parents and my parents would be your parents. It was only 2 months ago, but now you don't even recognize this big brother of yours anymore. No, it's not. Yun Xiao waved his hand, and his eyes became misty for a short while. At this moment he suddenly realized why Yunche wanted to become sworn brothers with him. Because his parents were actually Yunche's parents. This was a vow which they could not go back on, and the reason why Yunche had waited 2 months before he had identified himself was because of him. Solely because of him. A warm current which carried far too many emotions flooded over his entire body. Yun Xiao raised his head, his face revealing a dazzling smile. Sorry, father, mother, big brother, I was just thinking too much. The parents who love me the most has found their other son. My most respected big brother has found his real parents. So the happiest person in the room should actually be me. Father, mother, big brother. Congratulations on our family reunion. Yun Qinghong and Mu Yuro looked at each other and laughed. Yunche let out a huge laugh himself. After the tears and the sadness had gone away, all that was left on their faces were warm smiles which emanated from within. Episode 93 is end here. Next episode coming tomorrow. Thanks for watching.